You've probably been told you need to look more confident. But if you're really honest, the harder you try, the more forced it feels. You worry about your posture, your tone, your face, how others will perceive you. Do you have the right point? Do you have the sequence of what you are going to say? You're molding yourself before you even speak. And here's what no one really says out loud. Charismatic people are not trying to be charismatic. And if confidence has started to feel fake or uncomfortable lately, you're not imagining it. And if this already describes something that you have felt but haven't had words for it, go ahead and like the video so this message can reach other women that need to hear it. For a long time, I didn't know how to say this. Being seen didn't feel safe because I didn't trust that who I was would be enough to be accepted, enough to belong. So I learned to manage myself, not dramatically, but quietly, automatically. I wasn't thinking I'm performing. I was thinking I need to get this right. The first time I went to New York, it was for a TV commercial. I was flying from Venezuela. And in that trip, it was organized that I meet my first modeling agency. The director of the TV commercial was a good friend of my mom's. So he was assigned the chaperone job to, well, help me buy the outfit that I needed to wear, and then to take me to the agency since I didn't know how to move around in the city. He was such a kind and well-intentioned man, and he took me, I think it was Bloomingdale's, to get the right outfit. But from his advice, we went into the women's section, and he picked out like this suit and heels and makeup. And when I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, yeah, I mean, this looks right. I look like the women in the magazines. So the next day when I showed up at the modeling agency, I thought I looked just like how I was supposed to. But the fact was, like, when I went in, it just felt all wrong. My body felt like I was in a straitjacket, and not necessarily because the outfit was tight, but like when you're wearing something that is so off that you almost don't know how to move in it. It was a really cool outfit, but it was just not right for me. And I remember just feeling tight, breathing shallow, and receding inside myself, not knowing how to be in it. Sitting in front of the agency owner, I I was doing I thought I was doing everything right. I was just sitting, smiling, nodding, very composed, very polite, but inside I felt empty. Like if I had stepped into the room, but I had left myself behind somewhere else. A few years later, when I had been modeling for maybe 5 years or so, I had a similar experience, but almost like on the other side of the spectrum. Now, the meeting had been arranged from the owner of the agency to meet actually Lenny Kravitz. And what it surprises me now when I reflect on it, I didn't even ask what the meeting was about. I just went ahead and put myself into the sexiest dress I could find and high heels and makeup. And when I got there, again, I was so uncomfortable that I was fidgeting, and it's almost like I couldn't even speak because I was trying to hold myself together. And the craziest thing is that I don't wear high heels. I don't wear sexy dresses. So it was such a forced way to show up in the way that I thought I had to. But then in the process, losing myself and then not knowing how to be there. I remember coming back to my apartment in South Beach and realizing like how bad that meeting had been, how silly the whole thing had been. And I think in that moment I realized like I'm not going to do this again to myself, really. And not that the meeting itself went badly, but I wasn't there. I was posturing so much that instead of actually creating a connection or a possibility for myself, it it just created distance. I think I remember thinking that, or understanding in that moment, that what was off is, it wasn't so much even what I was wearing or what I did, but how far I was from myself. Modeling in the 90s meant castings. This was before social media, before even digital cameras. So you would walk around with your printed portfolio, which we called a book. So you walked around with your book and to show it to clients. So in these castings, we would line up at the lobby, and sometimes the lines would go like out the lobby into the street, like hundreds of girls together standing there for hours. I remember scanning the room and feeling that every girl was taller, skinnier, blondier, and more beautiful than I was. I think these times were critical on learning how to um, shape myself in what I wanted to show. So, in those lobbies with hundreds of girls, sometimes I try to show confidence in standing tall, but it really, I was just fixed. I was, be really upright and hold my book and have try to have this dignified look. But then other times, then I tried to something different. I would just like sit on the floor and be the aloof person that, I really didn't care what was going on. But in fact, I was very aware what was going on in the room. I was very aware of, not maybe aware, but I'm concerned that everybody was looking at me, which, later on we learned that it's not all about you. But do you know that sense, like you walk into a meeting, you walk into the room, and you have an idea of how you should look, but that is actually an idea disconnecting you from yourself. You're like, we're not in touch of ourselves. And the reality is that we only got about 3 minutes with the client. I would step in, put my book, and then step back, and they literally would talk in front of you about you. And once again, it's this feeling of, okay, well, what do I do there? And again, sometimes I try to be stiff and upright, and I definitely wanted them to see that I wanted to be everything that they needed. I wanted to be smart, I wanted to be sexy, I wanted to be cool, um, I wanted to be beautiful. but but what really stood out is it's the mechanism of trying to be something rather than just being myself in that moment. I don't know if you get that, when you are so afraid of being seen for who you are and afraid that who you are might not be enough. And I want to be very clear about something here. It wasn't insecurity, it was adaptation. When you don't trust that who you are would be enough to belong, you learn to become whatever you think the moment or others want from you, or what the moment requires. You don't disappear, but a part of you recedes and something else moves forward to perform. And that performance can work for a while, and it looks like confidence until it starts costing you more than it gives. There's something else that matters here that I think it's important that we say, that sometimes pretending to be confident, kind of like faking it till you make it, is necessary. So the problem isn't that we learn to perform confidence. The problem is when that survival strategy becomes our only way to belong, when every room feels like something we need to earn. And this pattern shows up in many areas of our life. There's this moment early in my coaching career when I had the opportunity to coach a COO of a multinational company. I was so excited and honored for the opportunity, but truly deep down inside and with disbelief. So it wasn't so much that I was insecure of my capacity or capability, but I really wanted to prove to this person that they had made the good choice, that I was worthy of the choice, and that I was going to offer them, I was going to blow their socks off. So I remember that first meeting. I was so focused on showing them how good I was. I over explained. I had planned everything. I wanted to tell them all the tools I had, that how I can help them. I just kept filling the space. The tone of my voice, I don't know if you get this, but when I start forcing, my voice goes a few pitches higher, and my face was kind of frozen in this smile, really trying to do my best. I think that's the honest thing, because when we're forcing this, we're trying to do our best, right? So I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I wasn't fully there. And I think the key thing here that to notice is that this impulse is right. We want to do our best. We want to show our best. So we kind of gather ourselves and we're doing it. So again, the impulse is right. But it's noticing that strategy of forcing an idea, that instead of delivering the value that we really have to offer, it actually locks us into an idea and gets in the way of the full dimension of who we are and what we can offer in any given moment. And on a more personal note, I have felt this as well as a stepmom. And I want to do my best. I want to show up with my best. And sometimes my idea of best gets in the way of just being there as a parent, as who, whatever I can offer in that moment. I remember the first time I met the kids, they were 6 and 9, and we were going to a movie theater. I think it was the Avengers. And again, I was new to this parenting role, and I'm from Venezuela, so these kids were very American, and they're watching this movie. So on the way, at the end of the movie, on their way out, they were all excited, talking about the scenes and the characters and what they liked, and I remember not being able to understand them. So I don't know if it was a language thing, in kind of English to language, or truly it was just like the moment was so overwhelming to me that I literally, it was kind of like Snoopy and the teacher at Snoopy, like wah 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 wah, and I couldn't understand. So I think the point, what I want to say is that maybe it's a little bit of what we were talking earlier, that, okay, well, I needed to fake it till you make it. We walked to the car and I was the adult, and good night. And, I wasn't going to freak out in front of them. But when I asked, their dad to walk me to the car, I immediately started crying. And I said, I can't do this. I can't even understand them. And so again, I think sometimes it's important that we demonstrate a certain kind of composure or confidence that we might not feel in that moment. But I think what we also need to notice or see, that it's the cost and the sustainability of the posturing. I was so heartbroken because I knew that I would not be able to pretend to be that confident for a long period of time. So I didn't think it would work. So if I were to say what I learned there, is like, well, I guess it's the path of vulnerability, is that eventually the confidence that I showed the kids was letting them know when I didn't understand, or letting them know when, yeah, I felt out of place. So again, sometimes maybe confidence may not look like what we think it should look like. Like how I was dressed in those situations earlier in my career, thinking that what I looked like was portraying confidence, where I don't know. I think confidence is more in the connection, in the moment with myself and others. So if confidence is feeling harder now, if being on feels exhausting, if you're noticing yourself managing, adjusting, and performing, and it just doesn't feel right anymore, there's nothing wrong with you. Being seen didn't feel safe because along the way you learned that who you were was not enough to belong. You didn't fail at developing real confidence. You learned to survive. And maybe something in you is starting to wonder if that strategy needs to continue to run everything in your life right now. We don't need to solve that today, but telling the truth about it is the first step when something begins to loosen. If this resonated, check out the other video on self-worth that doesn't depend on external validation. It picks up where this leaves off. And if you want to stay in this conversation, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and stay close.